Greetings, Felchin in time and space. It's your host, Shadow, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome back once again to the more of the great Ace Attorney Chronicles. We're going to be continuing where we left off in the last live stream. We had just made our way to Madame Tuspel's Waxwork Museum, so we shall be seeing what information we can get from Sholmes about Lord Van Zeeks in this episode, as well as tackling the first part of the trial. So without further ado, let's get started with today's adventure and see what's in store for us. Allons-y! Now, before I do that, let me just share this link to my live stream on Twitter. That way people know I'm live. Alright, there's that. And share this on Discord. And pull up the chat, and there we go. Alright, let's go ahead and talk to Madame Tuspel's. Did you make all these waxworks, Madame Tuspel's? I did. I am the third generation of waxworks artisans, you know. Gosh! It was my grandmother who began the tradition in my family. Her fortunes were checkered, living through the turbulent times of the French Revolution as she did. Though that is when she acquired a savoir-faire that leads to the astonishing likeness. All these waxworks really do look as though they're alive. In fact, they look more alive than Hurley. What you see exhibited here represents the most atrocious of London's criminal past. All the waxworks were created in the presence of the real people on which they were modeled. In the hours immediately following their executions, that is the secret to the extraordinary lifelikeliness. That sounds terrifying. All walks of life have similar challenges, I'm sure. To carry out one's trade par excellence, one must go to extraordinary lengths. My exhibits are a reflection of society. I create only that which the public wishes to see. Ugh. Why couldn't the public have wished for something less horrifying? Do not fear. Sorry. This room is the only one in the museum with such a macabre theme. I do hope you'll explore. There are models of famous singers, actors, politicians. Something for every taste, I hope. It was Iris who dragged me straight in here. Come to think of it. Sorry, perhaps I should have eased you into things. The great detective waxwork. What's the situation with that? Ah, my temporary waxworks model? He approached me some days ago, you see, with a business proposal. Oh, what sort of proposal? My dear madam, what these spots exhibits need is the addition of a world-famous great detective. Or words to that effect. Naturally, I am well aware that Mr. Sholmes is widely known in London as a talented detective. It's great detective, actually. He's very specific about it. Yes, the creme de la creme. So I was keen to come to some arrangement with him, of course. But sadly, we were unable to agree terms. Let me guess. Someone wanted to charge an exorbitant price for his services? For a mere £500. I will dive into your cauldron of wax this very moment. Or words to that effect. Mr. Sholmes might have overdone it slightly with the sales pitch. Regrettably, the museum has a shortage of funds at the moment due to unforeseen circumstances. So he came to the current arrangement instead. Surely he doesn't really need to do what he's doing, though, does he? I would think not, but he was very insistent. I have a 50-shilling problem that must be resolved by the morning. Or was to that effect. It's the pawnbroker, that's what it is. He must have something to redeem. Is the consulting detective work not going so well? And something afoot. I wonder, could I ask you something? Bien sûr. I'm just curious, is there anything going on in the museum at the moment? Some kind of incident, perhaps? Whoever suggested such a thing to you? Oh, well, it was your temporary waxwork over there who mentioned it to me a little... Where'd he go? Oh, he's disappeared! A wax model is a work of art, not some tawdry object for trade. Ah! There you are! Leaving the exhibit again when you should be working. Do you wish to be melted down? My dear Madam Tuspels, save your reprimands. There are more pressing concerns. The wax can wait. Is there ideas about your current problem we must throw into the melting pot instead? Personally, I would advise you not to involve the police. Why ever not? She's turned white as a sheet. Because you have at your disposal a great detective, whose services you may employ for a mere 50 shillings. Though, please be aware that I prefer, no, I insist upon payment in advance. Very well. Let us see if the great detective is able to live up to his name, shall we? Before I engage my analytical processes, I must ask you to clarify something. What, pray, is behind the curtain? That is to dispel special exhibit. There is an extra charge to see it. Ah, the special exhibit in the House of Horrors. You must depict a special killer then, I presume. Would you be so kind as to draw back the curtain, I wonder? Ah, absolutely no! There is nothing amiss behind there. Nothing amiss, madam. What about the arm protruding ominously from under the curtain? Ah! I strongly encourage you to allow me to see what lies beyond, before the situation worsens. Yes, very well. I will draw back the curtains, but only a soupçon. I must confess, I peeked behind the curtain earlier. The Dispel Special Exhibit is a very bleak graveyard scene indeed. And yet, somewhat surprisingly, the waxwork killer one would expect is nowhere to be seen. What does strike one, however, is the portly gentleman lying peacefully on his back on the floor. Well, then perhaps, Mr. Sholmes, that man on the floor is the ruthless killer himself. I'm afraid not, my dear fellow. He's a perfectly ordinary London gentleman, not even a waxwork, in fact. What? As skillfully made as these waxworks are, they are always distinguishable from real humans. So, allow me to present my two conclusions. The first is that a sizable business transaction has been taking place in the special exhibit. What? Why would you say that? And the second is that the aforementioned transaction is linked to a serious crime. She looks as pale as candle wax. I don't understand. So, Madam Tuspels, as you've agreed to my fee, you shall now have the pleasure of seeing this famously great detective and temporary exhibit at work. The Great Deduction. To begin with, we must ask ourselves what exactly is afoot here in this museum. The answer is revealed by the bundle of banknotes protruding so helpfully from your bag. In my estimation, some £200. That is all my own money. So what does this large sum of money reveal? Ah, not as much as the involuntary glance you cast, it would seem, Madam Dispels. Yes, the answer lies where your eyes now fall. The significance of the 200 pounds is revealed by that public notice. Waxwork for sale. Your business has hit hard times, it would seem. In short, you sold the infamous killer, the centerpiece of your special exhibit, for the sum of 200 pounds. No! Now let us explore the next curiosity with which we are presented. Who is the portly gentleman stretched out so peacefully on the floor? It would appear the man has suffered a severe shock, cause of which is clearly known to you. Ah! Unfortunately, madam, keeping secrets does not appear to be your forte. What dealt the man such a shocking blow was, of course, the 200 pounds! It would appear that you twisted this gentleman around your little finger most effectively. What are you suggesting? He rashly agreed to purchase the waxwork for the sum of 200 pounds. Only when he came to hand the money over did it occur to him what an extortionate amount he was paying, but the money was no longer in his hands. And the result? The scene we see before us. He collapsed in shock. Yes, the killer in this special exhibit fetched a killer price. We can only pray that the gentleman's dreams are not plagued with regret. The question that arises then is what has become of the waxwork that changed hands? Let's consider that problem for a moment. You cannot possibly. What immediately strikes me about this conundrum is the young man standing over there. Who is this fellow? To find the answer, we need only observe his neckerchief, such as is worn by a policeman as a secret sign to fellow members of the force that a crime is being perpetrated. Yes, this young man is an undercover policeman currently investigating this museum. I know him well, in fact. It's Sergeant John Clay. What are you talking about? The man's quite a celebrity. He received triple accolades at last year's policing awards. But next we turn our attention to the old man sat before him with a particularly unsightly visage. I've been watching closely and he hasn't moved a muscle, almost in fact as if he were a waxwork. But you... Your reaction only confirms my suspicions, madam. I noticed it at once, of course. Observe! The telltale sign that instantly proves whether or not this old man is a waxwork is the obvious price tag. Threepence? A tragically low price, you might say. Though perhaps the going rate for aging waxworks riddled with cracks. And yet, you sold it to the portly gentleman for an exorbitant 200 pounds. The sort of plucky behavior that's sure to attract the attention of Scotland Yard. Isn't that so, madam? I do not... Yes, the waxwork you sold has already been seized by the police and remains in their custody as we speak. The old man must be reunited with this grave in the special exhibit, and not a moment too soon. Thus concludes Sherlock Sholmes' great deduction of this horrifying puzzle. None of that made any sense, sir. I see I've stunned you all into silence. You have, Hurley, you have. And you've obviously upset this young lady in the process. Her cauldron looks awfully hot. If I could just bring up 1 point, Mr. Sholmes. Ah, the notorious Naruhodo 1 point. I'm all ears, my dear fellow. According to your deduction, then, the special exhibit featured this old policeman. So, that would mean that he's the particularly ruthless murderer, wouldn't it? Killer policeman. Automole. Sorry? It was a mysterious series of murders that rattled the capital only last year. The police rushed to the scene every time, only to find the culprit had disappeared into the ether. And it turned out the culprit was a policeman himself, a senior officer by the name of Ottermole. So you mean that's who the sinister-looking old man there is supposed to be? Indeed, it is a particularly grim face, is it not? Unforgettable, in fact. Yes, I remember that odious countenance only too well. But is 200 pounds a lot of money for a wax model? It would be enough to afford one of the latest steam carriages if that puts things in perspective. So it is quite a lot then. Is there anything else you wish to add? Before I melt you down? That bubbling wax is looking more and more ominous. The smell of all that molten wax is starting to worry me. Mr. Sholmes did more or less just accuse her to her face, so I think I might have to call on your assistance here, Iris, if that's all right, to make some minor corrections to the great detective's great deductions. Of course it's all right. We'll soon set things straight. Well, let's get started then, shall we? Before Madame Tuspels vents her anger. Just what I was waiting to hear, my dear fellow. So, Madame Tuspels, in accordance with our agreement, you shall now have the pleasure of seeing this famously great detective in temporary exhibit at work. To begin with, we must ask ourselves what exactly... I'm not going to read this again. Alright, here we go. She definitely looked in this direction, it's true, but I'm not sure she'd sell any of her waxworks, even for 200 pounds. Oh, she must pour her heart and soul into making them, don't you think? Over and above the wax. If it were me, I wouldn't sell them for anything. For that much money, I would, but it sounds like that makes me a bad person. But, well, anyway, I wonder if the 200 pounds could have some other significance. Let's follow that furtive glance again and see if there's anything else that could explain it. Oh, hello. What's that note doing pinned on the wall there? Oh yes, let's see. Dear Madame Tuspels, we've taken the prisoner from this room. The price for his safe return is 200 pounds. Have the money ready by noon on the 23rd of October. What? This is... It's just like the sort of thing that's left behind when someone is kidnapped. Yes, it's a ransom note. Exactly.
Take that!
The significance of the 200 pounds is revealed by that ransom note. Quite so, and we must congratulate these criminals on their inventiveness, abducting a waxwork. Ah! 200 pounds is no small ransom fee, yet you clearly intend to pay it. The model in question has special importance, so I put together all the money I have. In summary then, the 200 pounds you have in your handbag is ransom money. Now, let us explore the next curiosity with which we are presented. Who's the portly gentleman stretched out so peacefully on the floor? It would appear the man has suffered a severe shock, the cause of which is clearly known to you. Ah! Unfortunately, madam, keeping secrets does not appear to be your forte. What dealt the man such a shocking blow was, of course, the 200 pounds. So if the waxwork was kidnapped, where does that leave us in terms of who this man is? We could just ask him when he comes round. I think the point of this exercise is to understand the beauty of the deduction process, Iris. Yes, you're right. Hurley's trying so hard, we mustn't let him down. Well, there's little doubt that he suffered a shock. That much seems clear. But in that case, what's Madame Tuspels trying to hide? Let's have a closer look around. Oh, hello. This is just Madame Spell's right hand, isn't it? Yes, it must be. I can clearly see your left hand after all. Oh, but wait a minute. This is a left hand as well, look. Don't say such creepy things, Iris, please. And it seems very stiff, too. In fact, it's really hard. You mean it's made of wax?
Take that!
What dealt the man such a shocking blow was, of course, the waxwork hand. Indeed, with a solid waxwork limb, one could deliver a very substantial blow. How could you... The hand protruding from the bottom of your cape. It ought to be your right hand, but closer inspection reveals that in fact, it's the left hand. Ah! And somewhat masculine as well. In other words, it does not belong to you, madam. It is the hand of a waxwork model. Some of the visitors to my museum can be troublesome. They meddle with the exhibits and cause damage. So you mean that arm? Yes, this gentleman saw fit to try to remove it as a souvenir. No small keepsake, like taking a whole branch of a cherry tree when you go to view the blossoms. I'm afraid I had to teach the man a lesson. He confronted the man and tried to take the arm back. And the result? The scene we see before us. He was knocked unconscious. A point we may need to revisit later, but for the time being, we have our conclusion. Yes, the killer in this special exhibit has been kidnapped. The question that arises then is what has become the waxwork that changed hands? Let us consider that problem for a moment. You cannot possibly... What immediately strikes me about this conundrum is the young man standing over there. Who is this fellow? To find the answer, we need only observe his neckerchief. According to Mr. Sholmes, the yellow neckerchief is assigned to other policemen that some crime is underway. A way of communicating with his colleagues without revealing his identity, yes. It's a secret that's closely guarded by Scotland Yard, that Mr. Sholmes didn't hesitate to give away. Well, uncovering secrets is in any true detective's nature, of course. Right. Anyway, judging from Madame Tuspel's reaction to Mr. Sholmes' deduction, I think perhaps we might not have identified the man quite correctly. Uh-huh. What the? The man has a stub sticking out of his shoulder where his arm should be. Ah, well that settles that then. Right, this isn't a real person at all. His entire arm's been ripped off from the shoulder down. His arm's been... Of course, that ties in what we just found out.
Take that!
Who is this fellow? To find the answer, we need only observe his shoulder stub. No such boneless human walks this earth. Of that I can assure you. In other words, the man standing here, the young Sergeant John Clay, is in fact defying all odds, a waxwork model. I seem to remember it was you who concluded he was a real person in the first place, Mr. Sholmes. He has become quite a celebrity in London, being the winner of no less than 3 policing awards last year. I simply had to make a model of the man. Naturally, what other explanation could there be? And it was this detective's arm that was pulled off by the man on the floor in the special exhibit, wasn't it? Next, we turn our attention to the old man sat before him with a particularly unsightly visage. I've been watching closely and he hasn't moved a muscle, almost in fact, as if he were a waxwork. Ah, but you... Your reaction only confirms my suspicions, madam. I noticed it at once. Observe! The telltale sign that instantly proves whether or not this old man is a waxwork is the obvious price tag. A killer policeman? Called Ottermole, was it? Was he well known? He was all over the papers last year, but I can't say I know what he looks like. It's a very low price, though. Thruppence isn't much money. Only enough for a few measly hours of gas in Mr. Garrideb's delightful lodgings, in fact. So this is the special killer taken for the special exhibit, is it? The waxwork that somebody stole from the museum and tried to ransom for 200 pounds. Is this crusty old killer policeman Automole? Really? Perhaps we should have a good look around again and see if another idea crops up. Look at this! The old man's tapping his foot like crazy. He seems to be fast asleep, though. He's not tapping his foot consciously, then? So you mean, it must be a twitch. Never mind that. The point is, waxworks don't tap their feet, or twitch! And look at his arm, too. We've seen a scarf like that somewhere else around here, haven't we?
Take that!
The telltale sign that instantly proves whether or not this old man is a waxwork is the obvious twitch. Even the most realistic waxworks do not exhibit a twitch. In other words, this splendid old man is in fact a genuine member of Scotland Yard. Slight shift in your choice of adjectives, then. And there you have it. Well, Madam Two Spells? Well, what? It was me who contacted the police and demanded that someone come in the first place. He is clearly fatigued. He is sound asleep. But then, what's this tag about showing a price of 3 pence? No doubt the price tag of the muffler, which the old Bobby purchased recently at a local market. And I presume you observed the scarf tied around his arm. Does that not strike you, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes, the secret sign used by detectives show that some criminal activity is currently underway. Of course, because, as you know, there has been just such criminal activity happening here. As you deduced from the very beginning, Detective. So it would seem that we finally arrive at the truth. The waxwork of the especially ruthless killer from the special exhibit has been kidnapped. And Scotland Yard are already investigating. But the model's whereabouts remain a mystery. Thus concludes Herlock Sholmes' great deduction of this horrifying puzzle. All sorts of people visit my museum here. Men and women, young and old. Sometimes they drop in just for a short time on their way back from the pub. I welcome them all. But if anyone tries to damage my exhibits, I do not take it lightly. Anyway. Your great deduction was even more enchanting than I had been led to believe. It was a pleasure, my dear madam. I'm gratified that you enjoyed the spectacle. And as for your rough customer, I've no doubt he'll regain consciousness shortly and return home. What concerns me more is the waxwork from the special display, if it was indeed genuinely abducted. Yes, tragically, it was. Then I would ask you to recount to us the events surrounding the stolen waxwork, in as much detail as possible, if you please. Very well, but after I have told you what I know, I must insist that you return to your work. The talents of a great detective could be put to better use, I feel, but as you wish. Tell us more about the stolen waxwork, please. It was some days ago now. When I came in here one morning, I immediately noticed that a waxwork was missing from the special exhibit here. It is your most prominent display, so that's why the curtains were closed. And I found the ransom note in its place. The culprit must have broken in during the night and taken it then. So there's waxwork that was stolen. It was a model of some horrible criminal, I suppose. Of a particularly horrible criminal, in fact. The killer who left a more profound scar on society than any other, I would say. The Professor. Not a name I've heard of. So, Mr. Naruhodo, it seems the circle is complete. Sorry? The Professor case happened at around the time I was born, didn't it? Indeed it did, Iris. 10 years ago, a series of murders that rocked the capital. 10 years ago? Yes, at exactly the time that Barack von Zieks graduated from university, in fact. What? Surely he's not saying. So the big event that changed Mr. Reaper's life? As you've surmised, it was the professor case. Who was this professor then? It was a series of gruesome murders that had all of London gripped in terror a decade ago. After 5 victims were killed, the man was arrested and put to death. And now he's immortalized here in wax for all of Londoners to admire and enjoy. Though, of course, he happens to be absent at present on account of the abduction. But I don't understand. How is all this related to Lord Van Zieks? You must first understand, my dear fellow, why it is that the professor earned such infamy. It was due to the victims he chose, some of Whitehall's finest. What do you mean, Hurley? Those murdered by the professor were some of the highest members of the British aristocracy, members of the nobility, even royalty, and sent shockwaves through the country's administration. Members of the... wait, of course! What Professor Harebrain said! Lord Van Zieks is from a family with noble blood! Oh, gosh! It was the fifth victim that led to the professor's arrest. The last of the killer's prey was a young noble by the name of... Clint Van Zieks. No! I don't believe it! Van Zieks?! I'm sure you could piece together the rest for yourself. In the wake of his older brother's murder, the young Barack pursued a career as a prosecutor, and eventually became the Reaper we know today. I had no idea Lord Van Zieks had such a tragic past. Well, I'm afraid that's all I could say on the matter, for the time being at least. After all, I have work to do. As a waxwork exhibit. I am afraid I shall have to excuse myself as well. Oh yes, of course. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Well, none of the predicted scenarios I've been analyzing involved you coming to visit me here. It's been too long. It really has. I'm delighted to see you, Barack. It's been 10 years, and here we are, meeting in the prison of all places. I can't forgive myself for what happened to Mr. Asmund. I just can't. I still can't believe it could happen. Tomorrow the court will decide. Yes. I have a young Eastern man acted for my defense. He seems reliable enough, though. It was an accident. A terrible accident. He assures me he can prove it. I must warn you. Oh, I know. I've heard already. You're going to be prosecuting, aren't you? Yes. Since I returned to England, I've heard lots of stories. Barack, are you really? What? Never mind. I know that you have my best interests at heart. My friend is on trial. I wouldn't entrust it to anybody else. Of course. I fully understand. Thank you, Barack. Until tomorrow, then. I'll see you in court. Good water. "23rd of October, 8:52 a.m., the Old Bailey, defendant's antechamber. I can't believe it's been 6 months since I was last allowed to work in court. And now here I am, back at the Old Bailey. Ah! Mr. Narhutto! Good morning, Professor Harebrain. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. The atmospheric pressure in here is off the charts. I've never felt anything like it. It's crushing me. I feel it every time I'm here. That gravity. Well, this is Britain's highest court. But are you telling me it's fitted with some kind of device that could actually control air pressure? I think it's probably all in the mind. Ah, yes, well, you won't let me down, will you, Mr. Naruto? I'm counting on you in today's trial to save my life, to save the secret of my super high voltage instantaneous kinesis machine from being made public. Yes, I understand. I know what I have to do. I have to establish that the explosion 2 days ago was nothing more than an unfortunate accident. Well, I'm sure there's nothing to worry about, really. Justice will prevail. My commiserations, Mr. Naruto. You appear to have been lumbered with the most tiresome case here. Mr. Sholmes! I didn't expect to see you here. That was very mean, Runo, leaving me alone at home with Hurley. It took me at least an hour to wake him. Is it... Are you... Herlock Sholmes? Indeed, sir, I am he. Herlock Sholmes. Oh, I've heard all about your exploits, even whilst living in Germany. Ah, yes, Rance magazine is on sale in Germany, too. This month's installment was sublime. Your deduction in the Adventures of Silverblaze was wonderful. Ah, yes, a memorable case indeed. It concerned a snake, I seem to recall. No, that was the speckled band. Well, thank you for coming. I do appreciate your support. I'm sorry to disappoint you, my dear fellow, but I'm afraid I can't stay. Oh, I have urgent business that Madam suspels. You mean your waxwork job? No, the waxwork abduction, of course. Madam has engaged my services. Ah, so you're trying to get to the bottom of that ransom note, are you? The week's wages depend on it, as does the safe return of the waxwork, naturally. As such, I intend to give it my undivided attention. Oh, well, never mind then. I understand. Of course, with my skills of observation and reasoning, resolving the matter will be as easy as proverbial pie. I shall return forthwith. For until I solve the case, I shall have no money to afford a pie of any description. Ooh, then you must absolutely give it your full attention, Hurley. Quite, Iris, quite. My life is riddled with irony, you know? Whenever I give something my full attention, I have a quite insatiable desire for a pie. One of the universe's intractable mysteries, you might say. Oh yes, quite. Definitely, absolutely. I totally understand. Is someone a little starstruck? I wish you the very best of luck, Professor Harebrain. Why, thank you. Before I depart, Mr. Naruto, a word in your ear, if you please. What's this about? As you have remarkably little grounding in science, I feel I ought to inform you. As compelling as this super high voltage instantaneous kinesis hypothesis may be, a practical implementation, such as well attempted by the professor at the great exhibit, is quite impossible. But the professor said the demonstration was a success! Yes, it would appear that he firmly believes it was. I've read Professor Bunnybrain's paper about it too, Runo, and I have to say, I'm sure it can't be done. It could barely be done theoretically, let alone practically. So he's completely barking up the wrong tree? How could an experiment that had no possibility of succeeding in fact succeed? That's contradictory. And it's that contradiction that will be at the heart of the trial, I've no doubt. What's that supposed to mean? Now, I must hurry along. I wish you the best of luck, my dear fellow. See you later, Hurley. Well, looks like you're on your own today, Runo. But chin up, you can do it. Oh, what about you, Iris? No, I'm afraid I can't help. I have something I need to do. I see. It's going to be a big surprise for you, when you find out what it is. That sounds ominous. Counsel for the defense and the defendant. Court is about to be in session. Make your way into the courtroom at once. We're on the way. An experiment that the laws of science say can't possibly succeed, and a scientist who's convinced that it did. That's the riddle you have to unlock here, Ryunosuke. That's the key to this case. (23rd of October, 9:10 a.m., the Old Bailey courtroom. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. We are sitting today for the public trial of Professor Albert Halberine. I now call upon the counsels for the prosecution and defense to declare their willingness to proceed. The prosecution is ready. The defense is ready, my lord. I'm 6 months out of practice, and what's more, I'm without Susudo-san today. Is it just my imagination, or does the air in here feel even more oppressive than usual? So, I must say I recollect the victim of this case all too well, Mr. Odie Asman. Mr. Asman was well known as a financier, though that was merely a front for his diverse criminal activities. It was only a month ago that the man appeared to court prosecuted by you, Lord Van Zeeks. But the jury unanimously found him not guilty. Because every member of the jury had been bribed by the sound of it. These powerful London criminals are prepared to go to extra lengths to keep their freedom. But 2 days ago, on 21st of October, Mr. Asman met his end. The work of the Reaper, was it? If that is how your lordship will describe divine retribution, but the fact remains that Mr. Asman's death was a direct result of the actions of the accused, Professor Harebrain. Very well, then. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have been selected at random to represent the will of the people. Are the 6 of you ready to fulfill your societal duty? Who the heck are you? I'm most gratified to have been selected to carry out this important civic duty, my lord. That one's new. To have a man's fate in the palm of one's hand. Oh gosh, oh golly. It sends shivers down my spine. What? Science experiments, magic, conjuring tricks, courtroom trials, all are nothing more than performances. Where are these people? And a spurious scholar that defies the reputation of science deserves to hang. That's a kid! We have to listen to what's said on both sides of the fence, and then settle on one. That's it, isn't it? Isn't that the old man from the Waxwork Museum? Wasn't like this in my day. Wasn't like this at all. That's the police killer Automole look-alike. Again. And he's as exhausted as ever, it seems. Now, as I'm sure you are all aware... Ooh, something just flew in my nose, and I have to sneeze. Give me a second. The incident we are here to judge today tragically took place at the Great Exhibition, shortly after its opening. Though the death toll could have been far worse, with the exception of the victim, no one was killed. Nevertheless, the dream of the science being exhibited rapidly turned into a nightmare for the spectators. A tragic turn of events, and as such, the eyes of all London, no, but the whole world will be on this trial. It is our duty to reach a swift and just conclusion, I feel. So, your opening statement, please, Lord Van Zeeks. At the heart of this incident is technology never before demonstrated anywhere in the world. One of science's latest developments, I take it. The government is keen to capitalize on the Great Exhibition to improve British's technological advantage. The technology being demonstrated by the accused is described as super high voltage instantaneous kinesis. Good lord! It's designed to disassemble human subjects using extremely high voltage electricity and beam them instantly to another location where they are subsequently reassembled. Is such a thing even within the realms of possibility? Well, I don't believe it, that's for sure. Disassembling people with electricity? My goodness, how shocking. Ha! The whole idea is absurd. The hypothesis would never stand up to scrutiny. sir. I believe you are a fellow of the Royal Society, are you not? An expert in your field? I am, and my word on the matter can be considered final. Instantaneous kinesis is poppycock. Oh, this expert and Mr. Sholmes are in agreement. It's impossible. What is the prosecution's view on the matter? The prosecution would have said that the accused's instantaneous kinesis demonstration was a success. What? What rot? Order! Order! The professor's hypothesis is currently under investigation by the British government. If it is deemed to have merit, a substantial research grant will be made available. The accused made use of the invention built on his new hypothesis to take Mr. Asman's life, in order to be the sole benefactor of the grant. But... This disastrous demonstration was no accident. It was carefully designed from the outset to end the life of the victim. Thank you, Lord Van Zeeks. The prosecution's stance is clear. But you will now bring forth witnesses to substantiate your claims. Gladly, my lord. The cloak is off, and the games begin! Bailiff, show the first witness to the stand. Witnesses, state your names and occupations for the court. Yes, sir. Tobias Gregson, Detective Inspector, Scotland Yard's Homicide Division. I was on duty at the demonstration of the day in question and in charge of the following investigation. Albert Harebrain, scientist. You were born in England, but have been carrying out research in Germany in recent years, correct? Yes, that's right. After graduating from university here in Britain, I went to work in Germany and made an amazing discovery, which is what brought me back. I had to demonstrate my incredible hypothesis at the Great Exhibition. What you demonstrated was incredible, all right. An incredible explosion! But the science was a success. The instantaneous kinesis worked. Everyone saw it. They must have done. Yes, there was the terrible accident, but the demonstration of my hypothesis was a success. Well, that much is undeniable, as shown in this photograph taken by the forensic investigation team. This was taken inside the Crystal Tower, I take it. Looks like he got shot. The centerpiece of the exhibition, no less. That's right, my lord. Sees the victim ram straight into it. I see. Very well. Submit the photograph as evidence. The photograph of the victim has been entered in the court record. As the court heard, the victim of the incident was Mr. Odie Asman. There have been a number of allegations made against the man, but putting them aside for the time being, he was the man who financed the research for the experiment and the demonstration itself. I see. So to summarize the situation, the defendant is accused of taking the life of the man who funded his work. Would that be correct? Exactly. But couldn't it be that the explosion was caused by some malfunction in the apparatus used for the demonstration? That's right. That must be it. My splendid machine. My poor splendid machine. You saw it yesterday, didn't you? We can't even examine the wreckage thanks to the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act. What? The wreckage? The wreckage? But that being the case, how can the facts be established? How can it possibly determine whether this was an accident or a deliberate and malicious act? Extremely simple, my lord. I beg your pardon? Isn't that right, witness? What? Sorry? Me? No, your neighbor. Yes, sir. It was murder, plain and simple. Anyone can state that with complete certainty. What? How can he possibly think of that? Thank you, Inspector. I think we had better proceed to formal testimony. You will explain to the court on what grounds you claim this experiment to have been a front for murder. A front for murder. Moida! The corpse that went crashing through the crystal tower had a broken neck. I made a minor miscalculation of the angle of the beam projection, that's all. That was my mistake. But the post-mortem examination revealed another injury, a fatal wound. There was a lesion in the chest where he'd clearly been stabbed by something sharp, right in the heart. So the victim was killed before he went anywhere, and this fellow's the only one who could have done it. An extraordinary business. In addition to suffering a broken neck, the victim was stabbed in the heart. Information I would really like to have heard from someone other than the judge. The coroner says death would have been all but instant from a wound like that. You could say, in fact, that the victim was killed twice by the accused. No, and no! That could be further from the truth! I have here the experiment plan document that was submitted to the security team. Victor stood himself inside something called the birdcage, ready to be beamed instantly. The second level of the crystal tower, about 25 yards away. The experiment did not go according to plan, however. As the machine was put into operation, there was a large explosion. The blast caused the beam transmitter to point higher than intended. Accordingly, the kinesis resulted in the birdcage materializing in midair, from where it subsequently fell, crashing through the glass of the crystal tower's large round window. My word! One assumes the victim's neck was broken upon impact with the tower then. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. The machine was just too powerful. But honestly, really, I swear, it was just an accident. A terrible accident. Unfortunately, that excuse can't save you. No, not considering the sharp murder weapon that pierced the victim's heart. Murder weapon? What are you saying? This is the autopsy report submitted by the coroner. The prosecution would like it entered into the court record. Your request is granted, counsel. The autopsy report has been entered into the court record. I was there in person, you know. I saw the whole ludicrous performance. And the only other person on the stage with Mr. Asmund was that disgraceful excuse for a scientist. Then really, by all accounts, it must have been him. Hard to think otherwise, really. Very well. Counsel for the defense, proceed with the cross-examination, please. Oh, yes, my lord. I need to focus here. It's been a while. Okay, what stood out to me? First things first, let me take a look-see at this autopsy report right fast. Details of victim, Ohtani Asmund, male, age 47, nationality British, time of death 21st of October, around 2:20 p.m. Cause of death, hemorrhage from a wound to the chest that pierced the heart, inflicted by a sharp implement. Additional observation, a broken vertebrae, most likely resulting from impact after a sudden fall from considerable height. So, nothing wrong with the autopsy report. They got that accurate. Let's see here. Nothing wrong here. So it definitely was pointing up. A torn piece of canvas that like material back with rubber that was found under the experiment stage of the exhibition grounds. There are scorch marks at the edges. Why do I get the feeling this is like a piece of a balloon? Can't find anything out of place. It looks like layers of thick canvas with a thick rubber lining of sorts. I've never seen anything like it before, but applying Mr. Sholmes' methods, you might deduce it was part of a raincoat worn by someone who really, really didn't want to get wet, and the charring must have occurred when the person was struck by lightning. Or maybe not. Okay. What stood out to me the most was statement number 4. So let's click over to number 4. There was a lesion in his chest where he clearly been stabbed by something sharp right in the heart.
Hold it!
The defense knew nothing of this crucial information. The prosecution received this report from the forensic investigation team only this morning. That was the first we knew of it as well. I can only apologize for the impossibility of informing the defense. Sarcastic and insincere? Thanks. So, what was the nature of this sharp object? Among the accused tools that were in use at the demonstration, one is of a particular interest. This. Oh yes, that would appear to be some kind of screwdriver, wouldn't it, Counselor? Ah! There he is! My trusty little companion, Andrew! Andrew? Of course. Ah, do you know each other already? He's one of my dear friends, like all my tools. I've named them all, you know, for one big happy family. Andrew is my flathead screwdriver, of course. His brother Michael is a crosshead. Well, it would appear that your beloved Andrew has a red stain on his shank. That isn't... It's blood, beyond all reasonable doubt. No! And that's not all. The long, sharp shape of this Andrew fellow is completely consistent with the victim's wound. What? What? Order! Order! The court will enter this friend of the defendant as evidence. Right. So one of Professor Hairbrain's tools is the murder weapon. Great. Let me take a look-see at this screwdriver right fast. I've seen this unusually shaped handle before. It's the same screwdriver that was lodged in the grill on the floor of the kinesis machine, which could be important information, so I should definitely make a note of it. This is blood. Mr. Asman has no doubt. This is the problem with looking at murder weapons. Okay, so the fact that it has a distinctive handle must be important. So the victim was killed before he went anywhere, and this fellow's the only one who could have done it. Alright. What grounds do you have for saying that? Ha! Do you really need to ask? There were only 2 people on that public experimentation stage in front of the whole crowd. The victim, Mr. Odie Asman, and the accused, Professor Hairbrain. And we know for certain that before the experiment, the victim was alive. That's right! I saw him with my own eyes! Furthermore, following the explosion in kinesis, nobody went anywhere near the body. In other words, only someone else on the stage with the victim could possibly have done it. Did he really just say, "Great Scott"?
Excuse me.
Professor Hairbrain, do you have some information that may be relevant here? Professor! Ah, sorry. I was just calculating the optimum coefficient of electrolysis to separate molecules in the human body. And the witness stand is the best place for that? It seemed as though you might have something to say about Inspector Gregson's last remark. Yes, that's right, of course. He just said that nobody else could have done it, didn't he? Yeah, that's right. Who else could have stopped the victim, eh? I don't know, but there's no way that I could possibly have stabbed Mr. Asman, as you say. Eh? Explain, please, Professor. Of course, this cold-hearted policeman may not be aware, I suppose. But humans are warm-blooded mammals with blood running continuously through their veins. I had heard. And surely, you see, if I plunged something the size of Andrew into the man's chest, the whole stage would have been a bloodbath. No, a blood-swimming pool. but thousands of Londoners were watching me at the time. And yet not one of them claims to have seen a swimming pool of blood. Well, no, I suppose not. You see, not one. True. I didn't see anything like that. Well done, Professor. That was a great counter-argument. Order! Order! Pray forget the discourtesy if I save a drop from my hallowed chalice to accompany my old friend seducing. Here's to you, Albert. Oh, you're too kind, Barak, but I'm really not a patch on you. No, you're not. No? You've neglected to mention one crucial possibility. I have. A particular situation in which very little bleeding would result from a stab wound. Ah, of course! Inspector, enlighten the court, please. Yes, sir! Where are they going with this? Very well. You will amend your formal testimony now, Inspector Gregson. The weapon the victim was stabbed with must have been left in his body whilst he was beamed through the air. The screwdriver was found on the grill in the machine, so how is that possible?
Objection!
You say that while the weapon remains in the body, there's very little bleeding. Is that unequivocal? Look, there was no blood on the experimentation stage, even though that's where the fellow was stabbed. The only explanation for that is if the screwdriver was still in his body, stopping it any heavy bleeding. It's common medical knowledge, my learned friend, even on your side of the world. Yes, but about this screwdriver. The thing is, we actually saw it at the scene ourselves, on the experimentation stage. What? It was on the floor by the wreckage of the machine, poking through a metal grill. I went to pick it up, but the detective here stopped me. Isn't that right, Inspector Gregson? Now you come to mention it, yes. Inspector, are we to understand that you permitted the defense counsel to investigate? That you contravened the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act? No, not at all. I wouldn't do that. I just let him look, nothing more. I was very clear he wasn't to touch a thing. Yes, that's true. The screwdriver was in plain sight on the stage. But it shouldn't have been, should it? What are you getting at? If this tool had still been in the victim's body when the victim was beamed away by the machine, then it shouldn't have still been on the stage. Ah! That's right. It should have been beamed across to the Crystal Tower along with Mr. Asman. And been found still lodged in the victim's chest. Ah! Order! Order! How do you explain this, Inspector? I don't... It looks as though everything that the victim had on his person moved with him when he was beamed. Its screwdriver was still in his chest when the instantaneous kinesis occurred. Obviously, that should have been beamed to the destination as well. This is a strange situation. Even though people are saying that this instantaneous kinesis is a scientific impossibility, we're still basing arguments on the assumption that it did actually take place. Alright, time to tighten the screws here. My lord! If the prosecution is unable to explain this inconsistency in its argument, we can only conclude that the testimony given in support cannot be relied upon. Lordman seeks his stump! What are you doing, Hairbrain? Do you have something to say, witness? Yes, I knew it. It bears out. The equations hold. Mr. Naruto, don't worry. About what? Without delving into the details, there is no inconsistency. What? Even if Andrew had been lodged in Mr. Asman's chest. my trusty tool wouldn't have moved. Andrew remaining on the stage is consistent with my calculations. Bro, what are you doing? Why are you helping him? Did he really just help the fuck? Oh my god, you idiot! Why did you help the prosecution? Ah! That could have helped him walk free right there, but he had to be the idiot and speak his mind! Ah! He's upset. It would seem your illusions have been shattered. Clearly we should hear the accused's explanation. Or should I say, this brilliant scientist's explanation. Just when I found it inconsistency in the prosecution's argument. Scientists. Very well. The defendant will testify again. Provide us with a scientific explanation as to why the inconsistency asserted by the defense fails to hold. In the name of Apollo, I will, my lord. The inconsistency explained. To be clear, I'm still at the stage of gathering data in my research. My hypothesis states that kinesis cannot transport metal, though. Hence, the metal weapon should have stayed put. In other words, the point just raised by Mr. Naruhodo is an inconsistency at all. Mr. Aspen was the patron of my research. Without him, my work wouldn't have been possible. Now I have a duty to protect the incredible machine that we built together. So, the thrust of your testimony, Professor, is that based upon his hypothesis, metal objects cannot be moved by this method of instantaneous kinesis. In other words, since the screwdriver is made of metal, even if it remained lodged in the victim's chest, his subsequent discovery on the stage, despite the victim being found elsewhere, is not an inconsistency. And therefore, Professor Albert Harebrained could still have been the killer. My great hypothesis holds, you see. We had to make the cage used to contain the subject from wood for that very reason. I was not addressing you, witness. Professor Harebrained? Yes? Whose side are you on here? I don't take sides, Mr. Naruhodo. No. My only interest lies in upholding my hypothesis. I am a scientist, after all. Is he working for us or against us? It's very hard to tell. Moron! Let's see how you cross-examine this testimony, my Nipponese friend. Yes, fire away, Mr. Naruhodo. Transport metal. Wait a minute. Something about that's odd. Metal. Wouldn't his glasses have stayed behind then? Because those are made of metal. Yeah. His glasses would have stayed behind.
Objection!
Professor Harebrained, you say that according to your hypothesis, nothing made of metal can be beamed by instantaneous kinesis using the machine you made, is that right? Yes, that's right. Spot on. Exactly correct. In that case, I'd ask you to have a look at this photograph that was taken at the scene. In particular, I'd like you to pay attention to the victim's face. You can clearly see that Mr. Asman is wearing a pair of spectacles with a metal rim. What? Metal? No. Metal cat, that's not metal? No! You've already established that the proposed murder weapon, the screwdriver, was found on the stage. However, if your hypothesis correctly predicted that outcome, it should also have predicted that the metal rimmed spectacles would be found in the same place. Ah! My hypothesis! My hypothesis! Professor Hairbrain, this isn't easy for me to say, but your hypothesis is clearly flawed. Ah! Order! 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 Counsel, what is the implication of this? If, on the day in question, the alleged instantaneous cases never actually took place, it is entirely possible that the victim was killed somewhere other than on the stage. And in that case, someone other than the defendant could have been the culprit. But my hypothesis is sound! I proved it that day! The experiment was a success! The experiment was proof of all my work! If I could say something here in my capacity as a fellow of the Royal Society. Yes, juror number 4, go ahead. As a man of science, there's one thing I simply cannot abide. And that's a fraud who pretends to be a fellow man of science. What? Wait! Gray Scott! Are you suggesting my science is suspect? It's just been disproved, hasn't it? In front of all of us. In other words, the whole demonstration was a complete nonsense from start to finish. Believe me, my fellow jurors, when I tell you that this man is a heel, a bounder, and a fraud. I say the wreckage of that machine should be stripped down and thoroughly examined. No, never! That machine is the essence of my entire hypothesis. It's protected by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act. What the devil is that blasted act all about, eh? Who made up such a daft rule? I don't like the way this seems to be going. What's the best way for me to help the professor?
Objection!
Professor Hairbrain has yet to perfect his invention. That would seem to be the case, yes. But even so what? Going to such trouble and expense to create a fake machine to display in public? He would have absolutely no reason to do such a thing. He had an obvious reason to do exactly that. For the research grant money. Ah! If the government was foolish enough to have deemed the man's ridiculous notion plausible, he and his conspirators would have received a handsome sum indeed. Conspirators? What would be the value of such a grant? 10 pounds? You're an order of magnitude out, madam. 500 pounds a year! Ah! You can live handsome on that much for years! Why are you eating corn? Society's noticed an increase in bogus public demonstrations in the field of science recently, and plenty of scientists argue with each other to get the largest slice of the funding cake. People's greed is plenty of motive enough for murder, I assure you. No! I haven't deceived anyone, least of all the government. My hypothesis is sound. The science is sound. Please, you must believe me. No matter how unbelievable this hypothesis may seem to you, ladies and gentlemen, the fact remains that the victim was transported instantly to the Crystal Tower, which means that the experiment was a success. Ah, Barack! And therefore, the only person who could possibly have committed this murder is the accused. Ah, Barack. Where is this heading? I have no idea. My lord, if I may. Yes, Lord Van Zeeks. The prosecution would like to summation new witnesses to the stand. New witnesses? What would be the nature of their involvement? They were spectators of the demonstration at the exhibition, who were occupying special seats. Eyewitnesses? Very well. The court grants the prosecution's request. I should very much like to hear from eyewitnesses to the incident. The prosecution's stance is clear. This experiment was no postiche. The accused killed the financier victim there on the public stage before the very eyes of the spectators. Now, my learned friend. Oh, yes? It's time for you to make your own stance clear. There's clearly a flaw in the professor's hypothesis. I can definitely see that. But where does that leave me? We shall take a short recess now, during which time the prosecution will prepare as new witnesses to take the stand. As you wish, my lord. Good. In that case, court is adjourned for 20 minutes. Okay, how long have I been recording? An hour, 15 minutes? Okay, so we will be tackling the second part of the trial tomorrow, as well as possibly diving into the second part of the investigation side of this chapter tomorrow. So, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the Let's Play, please leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to check out Mother Roy's page or click the link in the description below to achieve your dream, be macaca, but if you're you won't be disappointed. And of course, don't forget to click that little bell button if you wish to be notified whenever I upload a video or live stream to my channel. We are at 187 subscribers. Let's try and push ourselves to 190 before the end of May. And maybe, just maybe, we can make it to 200 before June goes out. And of course, if you wish to see a Let's Play done, you can do so checking out my playlist section. All my videos are there archived for your viewing entertainment, so you can watch Let's Plays like God of War, Final Fantasy 15, Batman Arkham Knight, and many, many more. Thank you all for watching, and as always, your host, Tomoya, saying long Z, and I'll see you for the next adventure. Goodbye, everyone!